As far as brain development, during middle childhood, we're now going to a stage of, again, very slow but continuous growth. So, if you guys remember, we said by age 6, the brain has reached about 90% of its adult weight. In the next few years, we're going to continue to grow because growth continues well into adulthood, but now it's going to be a very, very slow and very limited increase. So by age 10, we're going to see the brain increase to about 95% of its adult size. This growth is going to be predominantly because of the dendrites and the myelination that's going to take place. If you guys remember, a neuron has an axon and dendrites are the receiving end of a neuron. They're the ones that receive the messages. And myelination, if you remember, was that material, that sheath of myelin that covers the axon and the neural fiber that makes the transmission of the signals faster. So faster transmission means faster reaction. So the increase in myelination will improve certain skills during this period. And of course, if you reflect on middle childhood, you notice that children improve in their skills of how to do things. They react much faster than, let's say, a 5 year old would. So, if I were to ask a 5 year old to complete a puzzle or put on a jacket or run, we are going to look at a limited ability or skill in comparison to, let's say, a 10-year-old. So this improvement in skill is going to be due to, one, of course, practice, but also because of that maturation and speed that is associated with brain development. Now, I want you to focus on the next three concepts because those are going to be vital when we talk about atypical development in the brain later on in the chapter. First, we start with reaction time. So, with the increased myelination, typically what's going to happen is that the message is going to get there fast and come back fast because it's sending a message to the brain and receiving a message from the brain to the body part or to activate a particular reaction. So reaction time is going to improve dramatically during this period. So the increased myelination is the reason why it becomes much, much better during this period of development. Another very important concept that has to do with brain development is the ability to selectively pay attention or attune your attention to certain stimuli than others. So, selective attention is the ability to concentrate on some stimuli while ignoring others. So, for the child to be able to focus on, let's say, the ball that is coming their way, let's say a child is standing there as a goalie. In order for him to pay attention to the ball and ignore the distractions of the other team who are shouting, or the buses or the cars that are in the behind him on the street, they have to have the ability to concentrate and kind of shut down all the other stimulations that are coming into his brain from the other parts of the environment. So this ability improves markedly at around age 7. So you will see children being able to pay better attention, focus more inside the classroom. So naturally, they will have a better ability to do this. A typically developing child, a child who has not mastered this ability, is having a hard time in this ability, will yield a diagnosis that we will look at later on when we talk about, for example, ADD and ADHD. Automatization is one concept that was actually presented in your book in the 10th edition, but it was removed in the 11th. But I want to keep it because I think it's very important to talk about it. And this is something that has to do with that ability to practice and master a particular skill. So during this period, children achieve this ability to automatize certain skills. So it's the process in which repetition of a sequence of thoughts and actions makes the sequence routine so that it is no longer requiring conscious thought. So one of the best examples of automatization is the ability to read. You start out in preschool sounding letters, being able to say b, b, t, t, ba, at. This process moves on to looking at the word and then saying it right away. This automatization in the reading example is what's going to lead to a child who can read fast in in comparison to a child who has difficulty reading. Automatization, as it applies to our daily life now as adults, is the reason why when you get in the car and you put on your seatbelt and you put on the gear to reverse and drive, you do not need to think about what you just did. You could literally be talking to somebody else and doing all of these things because you have automatized the process of getting in the car and driving. And sometimes we get to the point where we have automatized that process to the point where you wanted to stop by the market before you got home, but then you got home and you're in the driveway and thinking, oh my gosh, I forgot to stop by, because you did it without the added component of thinking anymore. It had turned into an automatized function.